All right, welcome to Talent Grind Live, Mr. Alex Mann. How are you today, my friend? Why can I not hear you? All right, I can't hear you. Is it me?
Okay, try now.
I can hear you now, Mr. Mann.
There's always technical difficulties, aren't there?
It was almost the perfect opening, Alex. It was almost the perfect opening. Like I feel like I'm getting this thing down now, and then we have an
Oh my god.
uncontrolled
Yeah.
technical difficulty, which just shows anybody you just need to go do it. It's never going to be
Just
perfect.
do it.
It's never, ever, ever going to be perfect. So, Mr. Alex Mann, how are you?
I'm fantastic, man. Nice. It's finally the spring mirage is past us now in New York, and it's looking
Hmm.
like it might finally be not freezing cold 3 months into the year.
But bro, it's March.
I know. I know.
It's
It's
gonna
gonna be
be
another
bad
month.
until May. You'll have nice days, and then it'll get freezing cold again. And then it'll be really bright, but it'll be freezing cold. And then you'll get a nice day, and then around end of April, beginning of May, it'll start to even out.
Yeah, it's just a mirage. How's everything for you? How's everything in the East Bay of California?
Things are going well. The weather's starting to get a little bit warmer and nicer. The days are starting to get a little bit longer. We're almost out of this deep freeze that we've kind of been in,
Yeah, you're
which
50
is
degrees deep freeze.
basically September in New York all
Yeah.
year.
I know, jealous, jealous.
Yeah.
But what I do want to compliment you on, by the way, is your hoodie.
Ah, in regards to our last conversation, I
Yes.
decided to wear the fast hoodie.
Oh man, and it's great that that's almost like you wearing it is like Larry David and his Spite store, the Spite coffee store. It's like
I'm the anti Don Hollum. I really am.
yeah.
I over prepared and I'm trying to come in the best way that I can. So, I'll tell you, I've been really diving deep into building the talent grind community. Like some of the stats I'm starting to see are it's insane, like 13,000% growth in
What?
engagement.
That's insane. That's
I can
insane.
walk you through the numbers. Like in relation to a couple of other industry influencers, like I'm growing by 7,000%, where they're growing by maybe 5 to 20% month over month. So, and I'm starting to talk to a lot more people. I think people are starting to resonate with them that we are here to give free knowledge away, as well as free resources and access to more reasonably priced resources such as Ellie.ai. And I'm getting more people talking to me and responding. And Alex, I'm still hearing a lot of fear out there.
Oh man, like it is a fear from a recruiter perspective or fear from the candidate perspective, because I think they're kind
Both.
of like in this equilibrium at the moment, and it's very fascinating you say that. It is fascinating you say that. Say
Well,
more to it.
I'll say this: if you're a recruiter and you've been working for the last 3 or 4 years, like you are extremely fortunate. You ought to be thanking your lucky stars.
Yeah, I mean, I would say anybody who has really been working in tech or in any sort of white collar role as well, I think, especially over the last 18 months to two
Yeah,
years, I feel
yeah.
like there's just been like an existential shift in like job security, just like as in the eradication of job security.
Oh,
Uh,
people are wondering whether they should be leaving the profession. And then I'm starting to see different puzzle pieces coming together because obviously everybody's seeing the same thing, right?
yeah,
And we were all hoping that the economy was going to come back, but Trump is playing his reindeer games with tariffs, and that's just I think making people uneasy. And then the Atlantic came out with an article,
yes.
and it has basically proclaiming that the period that we're in now is equal to the Great Recession, and they're calling it the Big Freeze.
I mean, I was reading it. I was reading the article when you sent it to me, and I found it fascinating that they mentioned something that it's like the pace of hiring is slowed to levels last seen after the Great Recession.
Yeah.
Like, if that's not like, I don't understand why that's not like front page news. Like, that is an extraordinary. I think do we forget how bad it was in 2009? Like, it was insane. And I look at this and I go, whoa, we're at that same pace. And like, I was reading somewhere that was like, all these job losses that have happened, like the firings that have happened, it's like there's going to be even more people in market for roles now. Like, so we think it's
Yeah.
competitive today. There's another 250,000 people coming into the job market starting like when we see the February results at the beginning of March, like what that'll mean for like people competing. What does that mean for recruiters? What does that mean for the way you source candidates? Like 250,000 government professionals now out there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. So, just some high points on this. Talking about how many applications everybody's been filling out, I can certainly understand that. And just in general, the percentage of workers voluntarily quitting their jobs has fallen by a third from its peak. Employees are staying put, which is smart. If you've quit your job to pursue your passion project in the last year, probably not the best things. And it really seems to be affecting the white collar industry the most.
Yeah, I mean, you could sense that, feel that anecdotally. Anyway, like from my perspective, from your perspective, I think we can kind of like feel that. It almost feels validating to read that. That like, okay, I'm not the
Yeah,
only one who's clearly thinking this as well. That like,
yeah.
we can see it, and there's data. Like, there's a great line in that article, which is like, employees are staying put, and employers aren't searching for new ones. So we're in this
Yeah.
weird kind of dynamic, like we're do you know what it reminded me of reading this article? When you sent this to me yesterday, I was reminded of myself when I left a really good company, Mission Lane, and for no reason. As in, I left it for like ambition, but I left the company, and it could have stayed. There was nothing wrong with the job. It was great benefits, great perks, whatever. And now it's like the opposite. Like, would I leave a job now? Rather, would I rather be pushed out or like left out than like actually leave? I can't imagine there's people out there that are like, to your what you're saying earlier, like pursuing passions. Who are the people out there that can like go off and leave a job and pursue passions? It's like wild.
People who've worked at FANG companies for the last 10 years and have a lot of
Yeah,
savings.
but also, it's very difficult to give up those benefits as well. You know what I mean? So they're kind of stuck in that cycle of fear. Like, golden handcuffs is a real thing. Like, if you're a Google or you're a Meta or you're like any of these large FANG businesses, I mean, like, giving up that level of, I guess, like wealth to open the Pilates studio you've always dreamed of, it's like, I don't know if today's the time, and it's certainly just a vibe, man. As a vibe check, I just think like everything just feels kind of off in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And clearly, what's happening here is that AI is such an instrumental change in the way that businesses can operate that it's just taking a lot more time for the businesses to figure out how to properly integrate it into their operations and what they really need. So what I see trending is more and more businesses continuing to cut deeper and deeper and overloading the people internally, having them work with AI, figuring out what the new status quo is, and then at that point they'll start filling the holes and they'll begin hiring again. But the only thing that we don't know is how long that process is going to take. And I would say that in the past that might have taken a long time, but when you're talking about Salesforce really pushing the agentic AI, people starting to really talk more about
Yeah.
agentic AI. There's another recruiter out there who's building a business, and he says that he's building technology. I guess we'll see what he builds, but he's building agentic AI that's going to do all these crazy things, you know, and to the point where it's going to replace recruiters. And I really feel that that's really looking at it from a half glass full perspective.
Yeah, I mean, like replacing recruiters, I think is such like kind of w- it's like that's an extreme, I think, piece of speculation. You know what I mean? Like I don't think any like I think what we're seeing is a hollowing out of entry level roles in businesses, and I think like if you wanted to become a recruiter, I'd say it's the worst time to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I would not be entering the
Yeah,
field right now and making it
but
a
I
profession.
think that
No.
goes for sales and marketing as well. You know what I mean? I think it's like for a lot of roles in businesses, it's like, I mean, look at engineering hiring. And I think there's going to be, I think what the AI is doing is like, okay, we can automate some of these tasks that entry level folks would have traditionally been paid to do. Like that's how they earn their stripes, quote unquote. But it's putting more of a
Right.
burden on the sort of quote unquote middle management, then like the managerial class within these companies, to actually activate a lot of these AI automations. And it's like, we don't really know how that's going to pay off for any kind of business, because really people are only scratching the surface with a lot of AI tools, and
Yeah.
I guess we're probably, I would say, years away from a recalibration of the labor market in terms of like how new jobs, new roles will be invented, and how new intakes of people, or how people want to get into work, are going to find their way into like a company. Like I'll give you a good example. Like I get a load of, do you know what a J1 visa is?
Yeah. J is that the one from no, F1's from Canada.
Well,
What's
F1 is the
J1?
car. Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. They're all used on some level. The J1 is, you're in the Bay Area, so if you ever see Irish people in the Bay Area that are young, they're typically on a J1 visa. So J is like your student cultural visa, but it can go on for a
Okay.
year. But you'll see huge influxes of like people that come over from all over the world, like really, to be honest, that are like post university. You qualify for this visa, you come over and you can work in the United States for a year. The amount of
Mm.
kids that come to me because I'm like, I'm Irish, and I'm like, oh, you're a point person, you work in tech, like, let me talk to you. Swear to God, they're all finding me on LinkedIn. And I'll chat with them because I'm like, it's great. If you want to talk to me, we'll get a coffee and I'll talk to you for 45 minutes. But one of the things that fascinates me is like, it is like nearly impossible for any of them to get work. Like nearly impossible. And these are like
Mm.
college grads. These are like people who are like go-getters. They get have master's degrees. Like they're 23 years old and they're like, want to hit the like pound pavements, and it's like not even able to get a look in. And I'm like, yeah, like would I hire these kinds of people? And it's like, no, because the tasks that I would have hired them for kind of have been automated away. So I think like there's a recalibration of like like where are we in this process? Because AI is just stripping out a lot of what used to have been done by a lot of humans in that space. It's like it'll invent new jobs, but what are they, and who's going to wait for that? you know?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. So if you're suffering right now, it's because we're in the foam
Yeah.
and everything. And when you're in the foam, like I boogie board with my sons in Southern California sometimes, and if you hit the wave wrong, it can go horribly wrong, right? Like I've been on a 6 foot wave and looked down and seen the beach, and I'm out in the ocean. It's that I'm about to hit the beach, right? And sometimes when you get caught up in a wave, you're in the foam and you can't tell what's up and what's down,
Yeah.
right? And you're supposed to look at the bubbles, and the bubbles will tell you what direction is up. And so I feel like economically we're in the foam right now,
Yeah.
and I do think that you know I will say this: I'm very very glad I've been building for the last 4 years because even now, my partner is really diving deep into
Yeah.
NAN. And building some automation for us that it's just absolutely incredible what you can do and go to your previous point. I said, well, are we going to need someone to clean data for us? And he's like, no. And then someone sent me an email and volunteered to do some data science interning with us. And I sent it to him, and he sent me back this link to a video by a woman. And there she's asking, oh, I can get that done in 2 weeks. Oh, you want me to work with the intern? It'll be 4 weeks. It's this video short that's been going
Yeah.
around. And he's like, this is my response. I don't need anybody. I just need to work. And so there's incredible opportunity. I mean, taking a look at Cursor being one of the fastest
Okay.
growing businesses ever. It, I just think if you're senior and you know what's wrong and broken in your industry and you can figure out like how to fix that through automation or through software, like you should do that on the side right
Oh, I
now.
mean, and to that point, I think like if you're a recruiter and you're looking for like you've got an influx of like you've got a pipeline, surely one of the number one like criteria you need to screen for is like AI curiosity. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing in AI? Because
Oh, I've added that to my
yeah,
interview questions. How are you using AI both personally and
I
professionally?
think it
Right.
has to be, because it's like I need you to come in. Nobody really knows how to do it. So if you're curious at it, there's a huge unlock, not just for the business, but for you professionally as well, to come in and be like a strategic leader in that organization. But like if you're coming in and you don't know how to use an AI tool appropriately, like I mean, there's plenty of other people out
My
there,
my my
you know.
my my Claude project for Talent Grind is already 45% full.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. with data because I'm constantly working in it. Everything that I do. Do my posts look like AI created? They
To be
are.
fair, I thought
I'm
your email
smart.
last week was really good. I mean, like, did you write it?
Well, I edit.
Yeah,
It's about working with AI. I sometimes wonder because it's obvious when something's been written with AI because of the way it
yeah,
structures it and
all the
like the
hyphens.
highlights and stuff. And I'm kind of inclined just to go back to long form, but ultimately that format's easier for someone to quickly read and digest than just a giant block of text like we see in this Atlantic article, which is more of the traditional way of
Yeah,
writing,
like a human.
right? Sentences and paragraphs. But the AI puts a lot of white space in. It breaks down to their simplest elements. It gives you what you need to know really, really quickly,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, and this is the thing. I mean, like, I'm just, I reading that Atlantic article, which will be in the notes of this episode afterwards. I'm going to put it in the link to the chat as well.
Yep.
Like, I just found the whole article very disconcerting, like
Mm.
seeing that, like, what would be considered as like primo white collar jobs, consulting, finance, like high paying jobs, back to recession levels. Like, what? Like, the only thing that could possibly have done that, like, I mean, we can speculate causality and correlation, but like that, like, it's quite obvious that it's an AI recalibration. I couldn't account for it any other way. Like, how could somebody like McKinsey or the Accenture? I mean, Accenture, like, what, a quarter, a third of their business is now AI related. like of all their revenue is coming from AI. So like,
Look at McKinsey made their own LLM and just cut
yeah,
deep.
like, I mean, and
Just
more
they
power to the
cut
business that
deep.
does that. Like, it just sucks for people who are in that position. It's like, yeah, you're disposable, but like, more power to them, like to make a product like that. But I think
Well, let me read this. Let me read this final
read
paragraph for
it.
everybody. According to economists and executives, the labor market won't thaw until employers feel confident enough about the future to begin hiring at a more normal pace. 6 months ago, for 12 months for me, businesses hoped that such a moment would arrive in early 2025. With inflation defeated and the election decided, instead, the early weeks of Donald Trump's presidency have featured the looming threat of tariffs and trade wars, higher than expected inflation, rising bond yields, and a chaotic assault on federal programs. Corporate America is less sure about the future than ever, and the economy is still frozen in place. So all I have to say about that is thanks, Trump.
Yeah. Oh,
You owned it,
I
Trump.
mean, my God, that paragraph is not pleasant reading, isn't it? Like,
No, it's
you know,
scary. It's
yeah,
scary.
I mean, politics aside, I mean, you know, business thrives on what, like, consistency. It doesn't want to be shocked, and we're being shocked, and there's a complete inconsistency in message and tone and what's happening around us. And like, you know, confidence is just so ethereal, and when you have a good confidence, everyone feels a good vibe and a good confidence. And it's like, it just feels like the oxygen's been very much sucked out of confidence at the moment. And like, we already, as a, I like up to that election, there, that confidence was zapped anyway. So it's like, okay, are we now legitimately coming into like a recession? And I mean, like, I'm no economist, but like, inflation ain't going away. And there's just less people. There's like, I honestly think that the jobs report in March will be a trigger for a lot of reaction. I think when people see that hundreds of thousands of more people are unemployed overnight, and for what, I think we'll see probably like a reaction to a lot of the kind of nuisance or the noise that we have found ourselves in, that we don't need this level of chaos. But like, I think that's going to be I think that jobs report will be pretty seismic, because like, I'm just stunned by the amount of people that are now back on the market. And it's like, that was worrisome, because there's already so many people on the market that, like, you've hundreds of people applying for jobs at any given time. Like, I mean, I guess this kind of parlays into like, you know, this is great for AI, because it's like, and I think for like recruitment SaaS AI in particular, because there's going to have to be a sea change in how candidates are triaged if there's so many people looking for work. Like, if you think about like your top of funnel, Michael, like, you're posting a job, hundreds of people are already applying. Someone's going to have to sift through a lot of those resumes. Someone's going to have to do a lot of those interview screening calls. So, like, what is the criteria? What's the barrier? What's the thing that gets people into the room in the first place? Like, how in God's name, if there's more and more people unemployed, are we going to be able to triage that? First and foremost, before
Alex,
anything else.
Alex, there's only one way out of this, and it's what I've been doing for the last 18
Being
months.
entrepreneur.
It's building relationships, people.
Yeah.
The client server internet cloud, I can reach out to everybody in the world and spam them with email era is over.
Yeah, 1000%.
It's over. So, I was in Notion. Now we're using
You were saying that
AppFlowy.
last time, yeah?
Uh, I've got my own server. I've built the knowledge base for Talent Grind. I did my first video for it for training yesterday, walking people through how to use the Team Source platform to start doing all their outreach and engagement. And it's really funny. Everything that's happening here, I'm a little bit older and I read a lot and I think a lot. And when I make decisions, I try to make the best decision possible. And I just saw a trend coming 5 years ago. I saw that SaaS was going to get commodified. I saw that data was going to become more valuable. And I saw that ultimately people would be better served instead of doing a contract with one company to work with multiple companies. And to your point now, I think we're getting to the point where people need to start thinking about how they're doing business and how they're selling themselves. And if you're senior and you feel like nobody's going to hire you, then it's time to reinvent yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, it's like, I think the reinvention is like super important. And I think to your point of even saying like you wouldn't recommend people get into the industry now, but if you're here now, you have to reinvent yourself. I think it's like that is so like what's the word I'm looking for? Like not like worrisome because it's not me that's worried, but it's like whoa, okay, it's like I would recruiters should be taking this extremely seriously. Like this is like very
Yeah.
existential, like especially if you're like not the A plus 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 in your business today, that's like the guy or the person, like you got to be all about like getting yourself to be the absolute expert.
There's people out there studying marketing and recruiting who've worked for some company in Kansas and have got 60,000 followers on LinkedIn, and you work for FANG companies and you've got 8. Like, it's time to turn that around, right?
That is such a great quote. Can that be the name of the episode, maybe, or something, or the name of the day? That should be the headline. And 1,000% light bulb. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of the same. I mean, frankly, like here I am, quote unquote, like marketing guy, like marketing inverted commas expert. I want to say, you know,
Yeah.
but like I've only got like X thousand followers on like LinkedIn. And I'm like, I guess I could turn that around in 3 months and be like, 18,000, 28,000, probably in a couple of months, like probably easily. But it's like the tools are there. Like, I mean, I know exactly what I should be posting. I know exactly the kind of content I should be creating. Like, literally, it is the playbooks are everywhere for people to do this. But
Yeah.
like, I guess,
The tools have never been easier, but you need to have a point of
oh,
view.
I mean, like, my God, yeah, like, and it's not hard to have a point of view because it's your own personal point of view. It's your own perspective. Like, whether it's right or wrong, who cares? I mean, that's the whole point of building the brand. Like, this is what you stand for. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It's
Yeah.
wild. Like, I mean, that is so I never thought about it that way before, where you've got like recruiters in Kansas that are like 60,000 followers on LinkedIn and somebody works at Fang, a job that people would kill for, you know? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like it's almost like not taking the extraordinary, it's like Rome burning and you're playing the fiddle almost. It's like, because what are you gonna do? Like you're gonna if something happened to you and you're in a Fang and you were let go. You know what I mean? Like, as in, like, because one of the things I always think about, I'm curious your take on this. Like, hiring people from Fang businesses is just like almost like a no go if you're in a startup.
It depends on when they
Well,
work
there
there.
that 1,000%. There, like, I mean, if I was hiring, like,
Did they work at Google from 2006 to 2013, 2014? I mean, I worked at Google in 2013, and even then it was starting to not be the Google of old. Like, it's going back to the Google of old right now. I don't know if you've heard, but Sergey is in with the AGI team,
yeah.
and he's asking people to be in the office all the time, and he's personally getting involved in leading, which good for him.
Well, that's the thing. I mean. I mean, that's a question of leadership, obviously, isn't it? Like, and the companies.
Yeah. That's what a
Yeah,
leader does. A leader jumps
you
right
have to
in.
do it.
A leader right there, they're involved. Like I just talked to my partner before this webinar, and he's been really messing around
Not
with
a
N8N
webinar.
for over a month. Yeah, oh yeah, this live
Not a
stream,
webinar.
sorry. Uh,
Ugh.
he's been messing around with N8N for over a month and a half now and still not finished on this thing and is almost done. And I'm like, listen, bro, I need you to work on our
Listen, bro.
platform. Like I need you to throw yourself into a platform like I'm throwing myself into creating content. And so, we'll see what happens. He'll do it. But it's just it's at this point where it's at an inflection point, right? If you're early in your career, you're going to have probably an easier chance getting a job because you're looking for less money. So try to get into the best company that you can get into, right? If you're later career and you're not getting any jobs, right? Obviously, you've got to do what you got to do to pay the bills, but you need to start seriously considering using all these tools and creating your own content and getting your voice out there. It is the only way to get a signal through the noise. And you don't know what's going to happen until you put yourself out there, right? I understand how scary it is. And that's why I think I didn't do it for long. One, because it's a full-time job to do it. And two, you're putting yourself out there. You stand to be rejected, and nobody wants to be rejected,
Yeah.
right?
Like this is the thing. Like and we've spoken about this before. It's like, you have to get over the hump of the fact that, like, yeah, you're going to sound cringy. You're going to, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, listen to us. I mean,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
and it's like, I always say that there was a great quote from Mr. Beast, and you might be like, well, how could I be referencing Mr. Beast on a recruiting live stream on Restream through LinkedIn? And I'm like, Mr. Beast will say that, like, to even get even a semblance of traffic on a YouTube channel, you need to do like 100 episodes, like 100 posts, like, to
Right.
even feel like you're going somewhere. I mean, when I started
Uh,
my podcast, it took me literally 99 episodes to, like, I got a text from somebody saying that was the best and worst episode you've ever done. And I was like, oh,
uh,
wow, somebody actually was listening to this that I know and was interested in the and I was like, okay. And then I started checking the analytics, and I was like, huh, this is like a couple thousand streams here. I was like, who are these people?
you didn't even look at analytics
Yeah,
until then?
because I was like,
Because I'm obsessed over them, and I go over them
yeah, it's
multiple
interesting you
times
say that.
a day.
I looked at it as like, my kind of ideology for, like, the podcast stuff. I don't know if this is for anybody, but, like, I looked at it like a Thanksgiving turkey. Like, it is a big production to create that one piece of content, but most people are eating Thanksgiving for, like, the sides and the leftovers. That's where the real joy comes from. And I was more interested in, like, what's it doing on Reels, what's it doing on TikTok, what's it doing especially on LinkedIn. Because I was like, okay, if I can create good content, turn that, like, podcast into clips, like what we do with this, like, LinkedIn's a honeypot, and you're able to get a share, and you're getting 20 likes, and you're like, oh, yay, we got 20 likes. And then 5 weeks later, you're getting 30 likes. And then 6 more weeks later, you're getting 50 likes. And all of a sudden, you're building up something that's there. That was the data I
Yeah,
was looking at. Not the fact that, like, 90% of people who started a podcast finished it. I was like, what? Like, that blew my
yeah,
mind that people would do that. And it was like, I think when it comes to creating sort of personal brand or personal kind of content, it's like, it's very much a mind over matter, because it's like, you can just get discouraged if you do 3 episodes and you're like, oh, nobody listen to it.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, man, like, nobody's going to listen to it for a long time, but someday it will hit, and the data is there. Like, the aggregate data, when people say, like, how many podcasts get to 10 episodes? 0.1% get to 10 episodes. Yeah.
really.
So, like, if you can get to 10
I can see
episodes,
that.
you're in a field of your own. It's like, so that's why they're like, keep going, because you'll find an audience eventually.
Yeah, so this is the unfortunate reality,
Yeah,
people, right? Like we're now living in the future. You have AI, you have access to all these tools. A new component of a career is a personal brand identity.
1,000%. Like, I would say stress this for everyone, like, no matter whether what job you're in, but I would say for recruiters, and I would say, for people in a position like this who would be listening to this, I would say it's, like, absolutely critical. Like,
Absolutely
Like,
critical.
how could you not? I mean, everybody's competing for the same person. Like, everyone's out there looking for candidates to, like, place in jobs. Everyone's
Yeah,
looking for companies to hire them. It's like, there's a lot of you and there's not a lot of either of those. So, like, it's very much a case of, like, why would somebody pick you over somebody else? And I think like personal brand, having that, it's like, when they say like there are roles in Hollywood now that are not down to your ability as much as they're down to your social media influence to be picked for roles
Mm,
like in films. And it's kind of like the same now for like regular jobs.
yeah,
Like if I had two people applying for a marketing job and one had 100,000 followers on LinkedIn, I'd be like, fuck yeah, get this guy in here. That's awesome. Like, I'm like, how do we leverage this?
yeah,
Like, yeah, like, of course, it's a no brainer, and it's
yeah.
like we said, it's just a question of like perseverance and just like really putting your point of view out, you know.
But the good news is that we're at the very beginning of it. So you've got no excuse.
You're
Go out.
also not late. They're
You're
not
not
late
late.
for you.
You're not late. Use AI to create material. Use AI to create a strategy. Let AI know which channels you want to use. Like I'm still not doing everything that I just realized. Like I'm writing on Substack, but I'm not putting posts pointing to my Substack on LinkedIn. And Substack gives me even these great little images that I can use and post to LinkedIn and other places that will direct right back to Substack.
I mean, exactly. No brainer.
Like I haven't even incorporated that yet. I've got to add that as part of my process, probably with this show. And another thing, it's there's so I mean, Substack will break down and give you AI generated short clips now for free.
I mean, and did you see that Opus clip has raised like 200 million or an evaluation of 200 million from like SoftBank? Like, and the fact that you can get this for free from the software you're using, like from Substack, like again, like
Yeah,
it's a no
this
brainer for you.
software that we're streaming this in is trying to charge me money, and their AI clips are cool, and it gave a virality score, and it gave an editor. But like in reality, what I've learned is I can take the clip from Substack, just upload it to YouTube, and I can edit it in YouTube if I need to.
Yep. Yep. I mean,
And
like,
it's super easy. Like this is not rocket science anymore. Everything works with each other now.
yeah, I mean, I was very impressed with your last email, by the way, and the amount of content that came out after it. I have to say,
Oh,
I was
thank you.
like, I was like, fuck yeah, Michael, very good, very very good. Straight away because I'm like, I love like it's the payoff is knowing that you're able to produce in the first place.
Yeah.
It's like, learning how to drive a manual stick car. You know what I mean? Like, when you're putting your foot in the clutch and and it cuts out the first time, you're like, and then eventually it just becomes like a norm for you. Just like go to the gym and you're like, first time you ever squat the barbell, you're like, your hamstrings are on fire and you're like, I'm never going back. And then eventually it gets kind of better. I think it's like, it's the same for this, like to create the personal brand, to be able to like make a point of view that you are a recruiter that is like trustworthy, that is opinionated, that has a strong point of view, that delivers results. All of those things are very doable to do. You just have to I mean, like what you were saying, Michael, just go to ChatGPT and say this. It's like, hey, I want to build a personal brand for myself across LinkedIn and TikTok. And these
Yeah.
are the areas of my expertise that I'm very strong in. How do you think I should even start? And it'll be like,
Yeah, what I don't do enough, I should do more, is actually asking the AI to create a prompt for me that I can use with AI to get the most out of what I need.
sweet.
And
That's
so
great.
if you're brand new to even working with AI, just say, "Hey, I'm new to working with AI. Can you create a prompt for me that will give me what I want?" It will then create the prompt and you copy it, put it back into AI with your specifics, and then it will give you what you want. And you can
Yeah.
do that in like less than a minute.
Exactly. I mean,
And so
that's great advice, by the way.
yeah, but it's true, but like so that goes to the point of so we're in the foam of AI. The job market is frozen, but AI makes everything so much faster. So we should be getting to the point where this recession is over faster.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, like, I feel like everything we're saying here, like, it's funny. Like, that's great advice, by the way. Like, that should be packaged in your email that you send out. Like, I'm inspired by that. I might actually go do that now after this.
And
But
you really, I forget to do it, but you should do it because the AI will give you the best prompt to use with the AI to get what you want out of it. It's an extra 15-second
totally,
step.
totally, and like, it's one of those ones. I'm like, I, it's just like it's there, and so like when we think about it, like there is a very difficult job market now. it's going to get even more difficult in the
Yeah.
next 6 to 8 weeks. Like, I mean, calling balls and strikes over here. Like,
Yeah.
I can't see it in any other way. And so, what's the alternative? I think like just getting to work on yourself, getting to know AI,
Yeah.
getting to build that brand, and they are interrelated.
Don't be lazy right now.
Not the time. And I don't
Not
want
the
to be like,
time.
but I do want to say, like, in the sense that, like, I would never want to call somebody lazy who doesn't do that. But I'm like, yes, like, as in, if there was a time to, like, get up and go, I would say it's yesterday. You know what I mean? And I love that your dog got up on the couch there, by the way, as well. Is that what you were leaning over
Yeah,
for? I
that's
love
what I
that.
was leaning over to tell everybody see
Is that,
Willow.
do you have a Dalmatian?
It's a Bernedoodle.
Oh,
Half
nice.
Burmese mountain dog, half doodle, and all Bay Area.
I was just going to say that's probably the most Bay Area dog you
It's
could
the most
possibly
Bay
get.
Area dog.
Everyone has a cross of some type of doodle in the Bay Area. There's
But
just some.
here's my story about how I found out about the Bernedoodle. I met a VC on a gondola at Heavenly, and she invited me to come talk to her in her office in San Francisco. And then the next week, I went in and met with her. And in her office, I met my first Bernedoodle, and it was the most mellow dog I'd ever met. And I'm like, I have to get this dog. It's beautiful and it's mellow. But
Love at
ours,
first sight.
ours is more poodle than it is Burmese mountain dog, so it's kind of psycho, unfortunately. But she's
Very
really
good.
cute. But she's
Very
really
good.
cute. But back to our subject. Yeah, I just think it's really never been more to find good people to follow and learn from. I would recommend Kevin Lee, Kevanlee. He runs a marketing company called Bonfire. I worked with him at Oyster. I built a marketing team with him at Oyster in the early days, and he puts out really really quality content, a lot of frameworks, a lot of kind of structures, a lot of really practical, solid advice. Simone Schiazzi, ex Google director, continues to put out just incredible content around
That's the
leadership,
second or third reference you've had.
leadership and management, and also just how to develop your career internally. Like these are the golden Google nuggets, people. I read every single one of his posts, and it's just I think personally, I was in shell shock. I like anybody in 2023 and in 2024. I went into periods of depression. Um, I had some rough times, and I'm forcing myself out of it. And if I can do it, I think anybody can do it, right? And we just all have to realize that like there's a lot of opportunity to create professional brands around what you know, and take a look at who your competitors are, and see if they're honestly as good as you are, and they're most likely not. And even if it's not even competition, it's more adding your voice, adding your perspective, adding
Yeah.
what you see, adding your insight. I don't feel that we necessarily need to be tearing each other down as more as we need to lift each other up and encourage each other. That's why I've started a podcast. I'll be putting the first one out next week. It's called the Meet My Network podcast.
Nice.
I'm specifically I've got close to 19,000 followers, close to 19,000 connections. I've just been winnowing them down. But I want to start working with recruiting leaders, getting their stories, specifically finding out how they made that jump from being an individual contributor to a manager, and what they think that around recruiting in the future. And also I'm doing it to try to encourage them to also start making their own content, right, and creating
Yeah.
their personal brand. And it was funny because I reached out to 650 people and I've had 50 people respond positively to it. So I've got, I think,
Like,
quite
oh, you just cold outreach.
just cold outreach,
Get
using my automation, a LinkedIn message like, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing, are you interested? And overwhelming response.
nothing ventured, nothing gained. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how my podcast started. Like, I took a list of 3,000 people, and I literally sent an email on a Friday to
Yeah.
3,000 people, and on the Monday morning, 300 people said, "Yeah, I want to come on your podcast." I didn't even have a podcast.
Yeah.
It's like I was like, "Oh, that experiment worked too well." 10% of the people replied, and then I'm furiously replying to everyone because I'm like, "Yeah, I'll book you for this time, book you for this time, book you for this time." I did like 60 podcasts in like 40 days. It was like get them in, get them in, get them in. But like, like it all starts with that first email.
I didn't even necessarily like to meet my network, but I just wanted to move forward. And then I made a cool logo with it. And I'm like, okay, well, it's just meet my network. It's part of Talent Grind. Meet my network. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's not
Working
much
title,
to
move
it.
on. Just who could, don't, 80% it. don't be a perfectionist, right? And that's my big growth area,
Yeah.
content creation and not being a perfectionist, because being a perfectionist has slowed me down.
I mean, in this business, in like creating content, if you're trying to be a perfectionist, you'll never get anything done. It's like, you know,
Yeah,
great is
I've
the
seen
enemy of
other
good.
people and they're dressed very casually, and that's why I just left the sweatshirt on today, because I'm like, one, it's funny because it's fast,
Yeah.
and and two, like it doesn't matter what we have to say is really what matters, and
I
and
mean,
so
totally.
yeah,
And
yeah. So the big
you
freeze
know,
is here.
jeez,
It's
man.
time
I
to
mean,
develop yourself.
you shared another article with me that I thought was like, another disconcerting
Oh
piece.
yeah, which
You're
one?
like the harbinger, you're like the grim reaper with articles this week. I was like, oh my God, like
Oh yeah, is that unemployment by degrees? The harsh truth about
the Warren Buffett article you sent me that,
the Warren
like,
Buffett article?
why
Oh
is he
yeah.
hoarding cash kind of thing? And I was like, oh man, like, do I need to read another thing that we're like on the cusp of fucking insane correction? And like, I mean, it basically kind of reaffirms what was in that Atlantic article,
And
like that.
that's where maybe I could be a good guide here, because I don't know if I ever told you this, but when the first bubble burst, I worked at the hottest internet company in Chicago.
You mean 2001 or
In
2000?
2001, I had gotten in early. I had like 20,000 shares of the holding company. I had built their whole tech team. Like I would go to networking events and there would be a line of people waiting to talk to me. Like I had a picture of a Porsche, I had a poster of a Porsche up in my cubicle, and the president of my area would come by and be like, "I can't wait to see you in that car." And then the company went public right as the internet bubble burst.
Yeah, that's very. That's. I mean, but that's actually an important point to make, by the way. Like, not that you didn't get the chance to buy a Porsche, but more like the point to make, like, there have been multiple cycles of boom and bust. You know what
Yep.
I mean? But like the point is to be able to like insulate yourself as best as possible and recalibrate yourself as best as possible. Like, how do
And
you learn?
yeah. And what had happened to me then is that people would not hire me because I was a technical recruiter, and that was a new thing. And so I then spent the next 10 years working at a variety of contracts, trying to get kind of support in every single corporate function. And within 10
Yeah,
years, I had built every single function within a company so that nobody would ever be able to say that to me again. So that's how I adapted the first time. And this time I'm adapting with the content creation, creating a personal voice, creating a personal brand, making use of all the tools that are now available that weren't available to me back in 2001, right?
yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting you say that because when I think about 2009, which is when like I kind of came into the workforce, like that was catastrophic.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was.
That was right in the middle of the Great Recession, right?
Yeah, it doesn't know. So I mean, like, like I finished in 2011, and but our version, the European version of that recession, went on until like 20. The Euro crisis ended in like 2013, I think. You know what I mean? So there was still a
Yeah,
couple of years of it left,
right.
and like we didn't have any sort of tarp. Europe was like, no, 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 let's do austerity, you know, so like it was the opposite. It was fucking ludicrous. But like, if I think back now to where we are today versus then, one of the things that I've kind of been thinking about is like the iPhone came out in 2007 and really hit mainstream in like what 2008 9 when the 3GS came out, the iPhone 3, and when they were showing when they had ads that were like showing like this is how you use an app. You know what I mean? Like the phone can turn out was when the ads were describing how the phone works as opposed to now, which are just meta out there kind of things. And everyone remember it was like there's an app for that. Remember that was like their phrase, and like there was this like app boom. It was like everyone was building an app. It was like, what's your app
You got
strategy?
free apps from Starbucks on these little cards.
Yes, you got the free apps. You're like, are you building for Android? Are you building for iOS? Like that was an actual conversation that people were having back then. Oh my God, your bank doesn't have an app. What is
Mm.
their strategy? I think that's where we are with AI right
I
now.
absolutely agree. But this time, it's not just engineers who are going to benefit and get rich. We
Exactly.
all can benefit and get rich now.
That is literally what I was gonna say. That mean, I love that we're so aligned in that. Like, 1,000%. I think everyone can benefit from it this time. So
Yeah.
if there's a recession, and like, boy, do we know, like you were in '01, obviously you were in '09 too. Like I was really there for like '09 to 13 or whatever. Like
Mhm.
there was a boom in technology at that time.
Yeah.
Like Twitter and all these companies that started coming up at that time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why I'm referencing Twitter as the main example there, but like, you know what I mean? Like Market Street in San Francisco, the Mission, like those places started like coming up with tech companies at the time. I think we're kind of back in that again now with AI. It's just the sprouts, the seeds are kind of seed, like they're kind of germinating a bit now, but like the opportunity is there for everyone now, which is
Yeah,
like
I mean, people
amazing.
will become influencers, they'll become celebrities, and then they'll hire people to build the tools and the technology and the platforms that they need to support their communities, right? Right, so community is a moat. I mean, I'll be honest, that's why I'm building
Oh,
talent that's why I'm building Talent Grind, right? Community
yeah.
is a moat, and by the way, I just wanna brag a little bit here, Alex, and show you something.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
I just wanna thank everybody who's been supporting Talent Grind and giving us 37,450% growth over the last month.
Is that 751 followers?
Oh, that's 751 impressions. We're up to 212 followers. So
That's
still
awesome.
very, very, very early. But the impression growth has been pretty, pretty incredible. And that's just through turning on and scheduling some posts and putting out some content,
I
right?
mean, get it out there. You know, it's literally comments on LinkedIn. Like
But
this.
always think about a brand, right? You've got to have a good brand. That's probably the most. I mean, I thought about Talent Grind for a long time. I went through a lot of different iterations. I did a lot of work with AI. I talked about it with my wife quite a bit. She's the one who created our logo. So she wanted to look handmade.
Well,
Uh,
tell her thank you for the logo. She did a
huh?
great job.
Yeah,
Tell her
I
thank you
like
for the
it.
logo. Great
Yeah,
job.
I like it. And then I did everything else with AI, like GPT Pro will give you the best images. It takes, 15 minutes. You don't have to pay for a designer, right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, like, I mean, we probably should be like for the community. Here's the AI tools to get started. Like, this is your starter pack.
Yeah,
If
I
you,
should put out a post about that. I'll make sure that I do
yeah,
that. Yeah,
like, just
I think that's a good idea for sure.
like I'm sure there are people that would be eager to hear that, but it's like, guys, like these tools are free. They're out there.
Yeah,
And like you don't need a mic like this. You know what I mean? Like you literally
or a mic like this. Yeah,
it took you a
absolutely.
long time to get like to cop on. You know, I'd be like, okay, I can't use iPod headphones anymore. I've graduated up there. But it took me 100 episodes to get to that point. I was like,
Well,
get the content out there. Prove that you can do this. It's like hitting the gym and losing 20 pounds. You know, it's
and
like,
so let's say people don't want to go through all the work though and build content for themselves and their own brand and their community. Then I would say like get involved in a community like Talent Grind, create a relationship with the people who are building the community, and build content with them. Right. So. I'm going to have a knowledge base, but if people want to add to it, I will let them add to it. I feel the more knowledge that we get out there and share, uh, the better, right? And so find your people, right? Like you said, like where are we now? I really think that once the foam settles and there's more opportunity, I think if you're smart, you're going to focus on building relationships, but you're going to use all these different tools to augment. I keep, a database of all the people I've got direct relationships with and the last time that I spoke with them and notes about what we spoke about. And I try to go through that like once or twice a year and just keep up with people. I actively do that. Very few people actually do that for me. I'm constantly doing it with other people, right? And I think that we all need to start doing that, right? And this is a sales thing, it's a recruiting thing, but this is the future of business. It's going to be your network. It's going to be what you can do with it. It's going to be what you can make happen. And you can only make things happen if you actually have relationships with people.
I mean, like, I couldn't agree more. I mean, just tying it back to like just being a recruiter, like you're paid for your relationship access. You
Yeah,
know, like you're going to monetize your ability to mobilize people. Like that's the job. So if
yeah,
you're not able to focus on the key fact of being in that job, which is like the relationship at the core and everything else, is kind of like noise. If you can figure out how to optimize a way to make that even better, then you should be striving to like make that the like absolute priority in terms of how you run
Well,
your business.
let's say you're an accountant and you're thinking like, well, how does this apply to me? Well, find who the directors of FP&A or audit or or reconciliation or whatever at the biggest companies that you would love to work for are, and follow them, engage with them online, become part of their community, right? Become part of their network so that they recognize you. And that will hopefully help lead to opportunities, or at the very least, they can refer you to other people for opportunities. And so this is just the new interconnected world that we're in. I
Yeah.
think that there's not really the best tools out there that let people visualize and see their networks, which is ultimately kind of what I want to do with my platform, right?
Yeah,
Right.
like a
Let
spider
people
web.
see the power of their networks and who, people could be connected through who, because, people change and they develop their careers over time and you're doing your own thing, right? So
Yeah.
you're not
Just
focused on other people. And next thing you know, they're the CRO of a major company and you didn't even realize it.
Oh, I mean, I do love seeing a cheeky LinkedIn promotion of like, "Hey, I'm just so thrilled to be this." I'm like, "Oh, good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Where have you been? I haven't spoken to you in ages."
Yeah.
But it would be, yeah. I mean, exactly that. I mean, we've been around the block for decades now, and it's like there are people like kind of all over, and it's like, I have a very good friend of mine who's basically in the business of monetizing relationships. He's not a recruiter. He's kind of putting people together with like money on one side and needs on the other, and he just makes that happen. And I'm always like, I couldn't tell you what he does, but he makes an
Mm.
absolute shit ton of money, literally monetizing relationships. And I'm like, he's a skilled, savvy person. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, he's able to see how to connect people. And I
Yeah.
kind of think like, for a recruiter, it's kind of the same thing. Like you're just gotta have your pulse on your network.
Yeah,
And like
I think
be able.
anybody, right? So even if you don't want to create content, find someone whose content that you like, who's in the position that you want to be in, and try to actively work to build a relationship with them, right? Like people are just going to have to, like, we're all going to improve the world. We're all going to improve business the more that we really start talking with people outside of our companies and our clients, and just start talking to more people in general, right?
Yeah.
But there's apps like Lunch Club that you can sign up for that will
Oh
just
yeah.
actually assign you to people to have meetings with, which I've been guilty. I've missed so many meetings on Lunch Club.
I used that a lot during COVID, actually. I thought it was
Yeah,
great. I met a
yeah,
load of
Lunch
people
Club
out
was
of it.
great.
Yeah.
And maybe start getting out and going to events. I'm going to be going to Transform in a couple weeks, so I'm looking forward to doing that. And just so people know, like I worked with Claude to come up with a whole strategy about like how to get the most effect out of going to an expensive conference that I paid for. And it dropped this little nugget, Alex, which I'd love to share here, which was go to a panel that's in your specialty very early, sit up front and ask a really smart question. Because everybody then in the function will see you and associate you with being a peer.
That's clever.
Very clever, right? AI gave that to me. And the thing is, like, I've been a recruiter long enough. Like, there's some internal antenna that I have that when someone's giving me a nugget, I listen. I pick up like, oh, that's a nugget. That's
Yeah,
someone.
yeah.
That's somebody did 20, 30,000 repetitions on that, and they've got this figured out. And that was a nugget from somebody who really knew how to work conferences. Which I don't. Like I'm awful at conferences. Like I've gone to SaaStr, I've gone to TechCrunch Disrupt. Like I've gotten absolutely zero out of all the conferences I've ever been at, and so I'd like to get better at it.
Yeah. I mean, I have the opposite experience. I think my conferences, but then I go as a marketer. Like, and in
Yeah.
my head, I'm like, all right, I've got a bunch of salespeople. You guys are fucking closing. And it's like, how are we going to make sure that we're tracking how well you're closing? What are the events? Okay, you're more personable. You're going to the late night drinks. I'm sorry, you're staying out until 2 o'clock in the morning. You're going into that nightclub with that guy, and you're not coming back until you get his business card and you get an LOI out of that person. It's like, what are the events? I actually think all the ancillary events for most conferences are like where like serious value add is like. I
Okay.
mean, if you can play golf, like you're onto a winner, especially in any of the Vegas ones. I'm like, yeah, like a
Mm.
big fan of those. But like, it depends. I mean, it's like having the strategy. Like, I've done events where I've hired a bunch of kids from universities and had them basically anybody who walks out with a lanyard. I'm like, ask that person for their lanyard. And if you can go in there, I'll give you like $10 a business card. I'll give you like $200, somebody who books a demo with us. And so all these kids are like excited to be at the conference. They're getting free lanyards, so you're not paying for them to get in. And they're running around like getting you business cards and getting you deals. And I'm like, cool. I incentivize them. And then you say, I'll give you a MacBook, or I'll give you the opportunity for an internship, for the winners, like tearing it out. Like there's so many things. I'll tell you one funny thing I did at a conference last year. There was a sort of like a hospitality conference, and they were like, here's your kind of area, your booth. And I was like, this thing is no more than a cocktail table. You know what I mean? Like where you'd have like champagne flutes or whatever. And they were like, yeah. And I was like, can I put anything around it? And they were like, no. And I was like, okay. And I was like, but that doesn't mean I can put anything on top. And they were like, you're free to do anything you want with the space. Them not thinking that I would absolutely take advantage of the space. So there was a Kinko's in the basement of the MGM. There was a Kinko's or a FedEx. I'm not even sure which one in Vegas. And I printed out like a 20-foot Drake dapping thing. And I put it on top of the table. This is at a bloody B2B like recruitment hospitality conference. And everybody came over to our table because they were like, why is there a 20-foot Drake on top of your table? And I was like, they never said I couldn't go up, and I was like, I'm just going to put something here just to grab people's attention. Everyone else is like, boring or like doing something kind of like, yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm like, why do you have Drake? Because you're here now, aren't you? Do you want to see? Do you want to see what we're doing? So
I
yeah,
love that.
a lot of it's being creative. It's just like,
I love that. I love that. All right, Alex, we're at 57 minutes. I think we should probably cut it off. You and I could, I think, talk for
yeah,
hours. I just want to thank everybody for joining us for Talent Grind Live. Yes, it's bad out there, but it doesn't mean that you don't have the opportunity to work on yourself and make something else happen. I'm Michael Dorn.